We have Taroonah Doolub, barrister at law at Juristax. Taroonah will delve into corporate structuring, explaining what Mauritius offers as a financial center, the main taxation laws, and the types of investment or business vehicles available along with their features. So thank you for being with us, Taroonah. Welcome.
Thank you, Philippe. Hello, everyone. What does it imply in practice coming to live in Mauritius in terms of taxation? What does it imply to come to Mauritius for doing business? What does it mean if you are considering to acquire in Mauritius? Should you think of acquiring in your personal name or via entity? What type of entity? So my presentation will be really revolving around all these different questions, and I'll be more than happy to hear more questions at the end of the presentation. So before I start on these technical part, just a few words on the firm here. What we do in terms of services, we are here to advise clients who want to come to Mauritius to invest, and whether they are looking for residency, whether they are looking for tax optimization, whether they are looking for succession planning, what type of structure will best suit their needs. This is our core business. This is our core service to our clients. We've been on the Mauritian jurisdiction for the last 15 years, and we are servicing about 2,000 clients today from Mauritius. So moving on, we are also present in other jurisdictions as a corporate service provider. Our headquarters remains in Mauritius, but we are able to provide the same service in the UAE, Singapore, Delaware, and other countries. Just a note. And our services, like I've said, can range from setting up of companies, application of permits, residencies, work permits, and tax legal services, opening of bank accounts, which is quite hectic in many jurisdictions. So we offer that service to our clients. And this is a bit about us in terms of our corporate services. Coming on to, I think the gist of this presentation is why Mauritius? Why should you put Mauritius as one of your priority options if you're thinking about moving or investing or residing here? I'm going to focus on why Mauritius as a financial center. Mauritius has more than the financial center of Mauritius has been in existence for the last 30 years now. So it's not a new financial center. We've been in the region for quite some time. We have had the opportunity to put forward the country in many international forums. And as Philippe has mentioned, we are ranked first in terms of ease of doing business in Africa for several consecutive years. And this was different reasons. First of all, we are well situated between Africa, Asia. Our time zone is ideal when it comes to doing business with two different parts of the world. We have a very highly qualified labor force in Mauritius. We are small in terms of population for sure. 1.2 million people is not a lot, but the people on the ground, we are bilingual, certain more than 2 languages. So we are able really to service people from different countries speaking English or French. We have a very low crime rate in Mauritius. Being in Africa, we know one of the issues that clients normally have is in terms of security for themselves, for their family. The crime rate in Mauritius and violence rate is very low. We are politically very stable as a country where democracy, the rule of law prevails in Mauritius. And we have managed throughout the years develop a very nice, I would say, extensive network of non-double taxation agreements with different countries, including European countries, African countries, and Asian countries, which enable anyone who wants to use Mauritius as a platform for business to benefit from those tax reductions and exemptions. So this is a bit about the International Financial Center. Moving on the taxation part in itself, we are, I would say, a relatively low tax jurisdiction. So there is a flat tax rate of 15%, which normally applies to all entities being set up in Mauritius. But there is a possibility to have a reduction on the flat tax rate of 15%, which may make it come to 0 or 3%. So I'm going to go into more details later on, but this is more or less the tax rate that prevails in Mauritius currently when we are talking about Mauritius entities. In terms of personal income tax, previously we were at 15% tax rate flat, just like entities. But recently there has been some changes in the tax laws in Mauritius, and now we have a progressive taxation system for Mauritian residents. So it starts from 0 to 20% for the tax rate on personal income. So this is something which is new here in Mauritius. There is no foreign exchange control in Mauritius. There is no capital gains tax, which Philippe has explained previously. There is no withholding tax on payment of dividends from any Mauritian resident companies, no withholding tax on dividends, interest, and royalties. Very important as well, if ever you're planning to set up a company in Mauritius, there is no minimum capital requirement for a basic company setup in Mauritius. So there is no need to come to Mauritius, where it's a beautiful island. And I'm sure if ever someone is considering doing business, the first thing he would put on his agenda is to come here. But to open the company in itself, you do not need to be physically present on the ground. And this is not only for the company, but also for the bank account opening. Many of our clients have done the bank account or the company setup remotely. And this is very different from other financial centers which require physical presence, either for the setup or the bank account opening. So this is something which also helps Mauritius to continue attracting foreign investors. Like we've mentioned, we have 46 double taxation avoidance agreements, 21 with African countries. We have investment promotion and protection agreements with many countries, including Africa, to make sure the investments of foreigners are being protected and there is no expropriation by the government. So, given that we're still talking about all the taxation here, you will have more details about the flat tax rate that I was explaining, which remains 15% for all entities in Mauritius, but we have an 80% of exemption on certain types of income. If a Mauritian entity is earning dividend or is earning interest, those income will not be taxed at 15%, but they will be taxed at maximum 3%. If those type of income are already being taxed in another country, we can claim a foreign credit on those income, and eventually the tax rate will be further reduced to 0%. So all these make Mauritius a very interesting jurisdiction when you're thinking of doing any kind of business, whether on the territory in itself or outside Mauritius, but using Mauritius as a platform. Moving on from here. Eventually, I think we've all gone through this. There is no inheritance tax, no death duties, no wealth taxes in Mauritius. So this is something which I believe many of our clients are very, I would say, very keen on learning more. People who would come to us would be either coming, like I've said, for tax optimization or for succession planning. And the reason why Mauritius remains a very interesting jurisdiction for succession planning is eventually because there is no inheritance tax, death duties, or wealth taxes. And the reason, the way the law are in existence in Mauritius, they give you the possibility of creating different types of vehicles which become substitutes of wills or the succession laws of your country. And I'm going to browse for a bit later on those type of succession planning vehicles. And if you will have a look at this slide, it's all about people who want to come and live in Mauritius, residing in Mauritius, meaning you can decide to have only a residency permit via the acquisition of one of the immovable property that Philippe has mentioned, or you can decide to come and look for a job in Mauritius, which means that you're going to come and stay in the country, or you can decide to come and have a residency permit via investing into the country. Whichever option you will choose, it's important to make a distinction between residency permit as such and tax residency of a person. So any acquisition will automatically give you a residency permit, but if you want to become a tax resident in Mauritius, you need to be in the country physically for 183 days in a year. So once you are here for 183 days, you can apply for a tax residency certificate and you will get a tax account number, which means you can make all the declaration of your worldwide income in Mauritius and pay taxes here, which here will be the tax rate that will become applicable to you if ever you are earning the different types of, I would say, the different brackets of income that are on the slide here. You will know in which I would say category you are falling for the tax rate to be applicable. And this is relatively new for all of us, even the Mauritians here. But which is interesting is normally earlier it was 15. Now we know certain people can pay less depending on how much they are earning, which is much more fair for them. If we continue, I would like to touch base on the, I would say, the bestsellers of the Mauritius International Financial Center, and which I would say would join a bit the discussion about when people would come to Mauritius, they will think, should we buy in our own name, in our personal name, or should we consider setting up an entity in Mauritius to make the acquisition? Our answers normally differ. It will differ in terms of why are you buying the house? Are you going to stay, or are you going to buy it for investment, to rent, or are you going to buy to keep it and then to sell it again? So in terms of returns, so based on the circumstances of a client, you are able to advise. And more importantly is also where the client remains as a tax resident, whether he's going to become a tax resident in Mauritius or he's staying in his own country, which means he's liable for taxation in his country of residence. So all these will be factors, very important factors to consider for us to be able to give an advice to a client, whether he should set up the company or a trust or a foundation for the acquisition, or just go and buy it in his personal name. And so here a few, I would say some details on the company of Mauritius. It's normally if you are buying a property in Mauritius, we will proceed with the creation of a domestic or local company. Just a few, I would say some very important things to consider is there is no need to have a local partner for the creation of a domestic local company. A foreigner can be 100% shareholder. It can be only one shareholder. There is no need to have more than one. The only important aspect to consider is you need to have one resident director, which our company can provide, or if you know someone you are comfortable to act as a director, you can do that. There is a need to have a company secretary in certain cases, which we will provide. No minimum share capital, like I've mentioned previously. The registered office address would be in Mauritius. So this is, I would say, the most important features to consider if you are planning to set up a company, be it for acquisition or for doing business in Mauritius. I mean, the last, I think this is the last slide in my presentation. It's really about the trust and foundation. And these are the most sought vehicles whenever someone is planning to buy in Mauritius, but also considering to give those assets, to give the house to their children in the most tax efficient manner. Be it the trust or the foundation, both are considered as succession planning vehicles. They can be used for commercial purposes, but most of the time they are more commonly used to make sure that whatever assets someone has today can be given away to their future generations without the need of triggering the succession laws of their own country. So this is the main reason why someone would consider creating a succession planning vehicle, which can be either the trust or the foundation. Depending on where the client is coming from, is it from a civil law jurisdiction or a common law jurisdiction, he will be more comfortable either with the trust or the foundation. But both vehicles, what it ensures is there is a segregation of a legal ownership of a property from the person who has bought to it to the vehicle. So this is the first important aspect. It's really the segregation of ownership, which means that the villa or the house will belong either to the trustees representing the trust or to the foundation, and not necessarily to the person. So there is this legal segregation. There is a very, I would say, a huge flexibility in terms of deciding how you want to use or distribute the assets, be it from the trust or from the foundation, to whom you want to give the assets. It's important to know that in Mauritius, if someone set up a trust or a foundation in Mauritius, you can decide to give the assets of the trust or foundation to anyone even if it's in contravention of the succession laws of your own country. So this is something which is explicitly written in our laws, and it's something interesting for clients to be aware of, even if sometimes people not necessarily would need it, but it's good to be aware of. It's full protection of assets against creditors and against anyone who will potentially claim that they have an interest in the assets, because there is really this transfer of ownership that happens whenever you are setting up a foundation over trust. And most importantly is you make sure that when you're no more, the assets continue to be stayed in a vehicle for either your children or your future generations. So there is no need for any change in the ownership, no need to go in front of a notary, no need to incur additional expenses. And like I've said, there is no succession which is open, because it doesn't belong to the person, but to a vehicle. So I think this is what you need to consider if ever you are planning to buy in Mauritius and you're also considering the succession for your children. And so I think with this, I should be completing the presentation that I had to make in terms of corporate structuring and the different taxation aspects of a Mauritius legal system.
Thank you so much, Taroonah. That was very insightful.